Hello, and welcome to this Mayoral Community Forum. I'm Mayor Cashenna A. Cross, and today we will be discussing a topic that many people may find pretty difficult to discuss. But what I have discovered, even in my own life, is that the discussion is a matter of healing. Today we are discussing in this season, as we prepare for the season of giving, and then even further, the season of the Christmas, the holiday season. We acknowledge that these seasons become some of the toughest seasons of any seasons of the year. And at this time, it's so important that we ensure that everyone has an appreciation to the community that is here and will remain here to take care and build the value that we as a community see in each other. We acknowledge the many different ways that we give. We also acknowledge the many different ways that we have to heal. I'm Mayor Cashenna A. Cross, and this is the Mayoral Community Forum for the month of November. We are dealing with the topic of loss. We are finding positive outlets in which to bring forth unanimous growth in our communities, as well as in our children and our families. One of the key things that I acknowledged, even in dealing with my own losses and my grief, growing up, I was 19 by the time I'd lost both of my parents. They were older parents, and as of which, life just took them a lot sooner than I, as a child, needed them gone. But I had a wonderful set of sisters and brothers where I grew up in Aberdeen, Mississippi, that took care to pay attention to the many signs of grief that even I was dealing with. And I'm very strong and very determined. So that takes a very special kind of person to say, you need to stop and you need to slow down. The greatest minds in the world as well will have a hard time finding a place where you can see growth beyond an event, that a tragedy or an event where things may not have been as you would have desired them. The wonderful thing about having loved ones is being able to know that we have a peace and an eternal existence where we will see them again. And it has quieted my soul. As I get myself ready to become 50, I told you by the time I was 19, both parents were gone. I acknowledged that it took a village. And that's the topic that we're really going to drive home in today's community forum. Where is our village? Because beyond childhood loss, family losses, mothers and fathers who are still grieving and have lost, we need the village to return. It is in the quiet moments that we miss our loved ones most. And it is the mind that wonders and creates the heartbreak over and over and over again. But it is the moments of power and strength that the community helps you remember, because we recall fondly those beautiful skies that we looked upon, the mountains, the trips that we took. And we look upon how that individual brought forth great opportunities and change in all of us. And because they are with us, was with us, they remain with us still in our hearts. I imagine living in a world where all of us feels no one is alone. And that's what the village is about. So I welcome you to this Mayoral Forum. This Mayoral Forum is a little different. Normally, we would have a presenter that would speak to the various topics. Today, we will take an open floor approach to the Mayoral Forum and allow our community leaders that are on this line to introduce themselves as they see fit. There is a hand raise button at the bottom of your screen. Just go to the title Reactions. You are then able to click that button and raise your hand, and I can acknowledge you for speaking on a topic that you desire to speak on at this time, as we're dealing with the topic of building the community. So I thank you and I welcome you. As I look at our community and I look at the village, what does it take to build a village? So the village is an age-old idiom that many people use, particularly in a cultural sense, which highlights that there are always groups associated larger than your current existence that's got you wrapped in their arms and that comfort. You know, a village is a cluster of human settlements, a community. And in Prince George's County, we have 27 of them. In the state of Maryland, we have 157 of them. Those villages are what we call communities, municipalities, cities. And I really want us to understand that no one is an island in Prince George's County, particularly, or in any county. It really takes all of us pulling together to build what we call the village. And feel free, any of my guests, if you want to, please just raise your hand and we will acknowledge you and bring you on. But the municipality, be it a city or be it a town, is usually self-governed, which means most commonly they're incorporated by an act from the General Assembly, and they become a part of the municipalities, particularly here in the state of Maryland. Again, there's 157 of them. I really want us to build the extended village, because the extended village is the larger set of the communities. And many of you know me, Mayor Cross. I traditionally like to extend programs and events that I do here in the community with our neighboring community members of cities and municipalities. And number one reason for that is we build a larger appreciation for each other. After COVID-19, it was really an important piece for mental health and wellness for me to hold programs and events that open up the door for healing. And communication is the number one way for people to heal. We have to talk about the tough issues. I recognize you, Pastor Barbara.
Yes, good evening, Mayor Cross, everybody. I just wanted to weigh in. I'm at a job fair, but I'm listening. This is over at 7, and maybe after 7 I
Pastor
can come
Barbara,
back
I see
in.
your hand up.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Okay. So when he
Can you
comes
hear me,
on, we'll
man?
make sure that we recognize. Oh, I see you. Are you able to speak there, sir?
I'm trying. Yeah, can you hear me?
I can
I don't.
see you. I
Okay,
can't hear you.
I'm gonna work on it. Pass me. I'll work on it. I'm here. I'm here. I'll work on it.
Okay. We can see you, Pastor Barbara, but we cannot hear you. Maybe we got to cut our audio down in our settings, cut the audio on. Hold on, let's see. It could be on my side as well.
So, can you
Okay.
hear me? Still can't hear me?
Hold
Let
on.
me work on it. I'll
I
work
hear
on it.
you now. I hear you now.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to say I'm at a job fair, It's over at 7. I'm listening, and then I'm going to weigh in and like to say something after 7 before you close.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so
Okay.
much. We appreciate you. And
And
it's
thank
great to
you
see
all.
you. And you know, Pastor Barbara is part of the Employ Prince George's family. And he's done many programs with the city of Glenarden in making sure that we are fighting also for our returning citizens. And hopefully this year, we're going to work some legislation together which
Mhm.
ensures that our returning citizens can come to community strong and also be employed with jobs that are, you know, equity building in the community as well as the family. So we thank you, sir, for all that you're doing. We really appreciate you.
I'm listening, okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay. So again, please just use your raise your hand button. We would love to recognize you in this particular Mayoral Community Forum. Now, as we were talking about the village, many people ask this question, like, when you say the village, what do you mean, Mayor Cross? And they say, well, what's the difference between a village and kind of a town? Well, being from, of course, the African American heritage, from the nation, the continent of Africa as our lineage, the village has always been generally about a small set of people. And each one of us has a set of community friends that we have even at our workplace. That's a small set of people, it's a village. When you are in a city or a municipality, these are places of really large establishments where we all come together for the purposes of similarities, be it pubs, be it shops, be it schools, be it churches. But of course, the biggest piece of the village being the housing. And in Glenarden, for example, we have three essential villages in our ward segments that we in Glenarden have, wards 1, 2, and 3. And then we have the larger village, which is the municipality itself. What keeps us moving ahead is our ability to address the purpose that we have. And with that, many of us in our municipalities have a slogan. So the city of Glenarden is the city on the move. And when I ran for mayor, it really rang to me that we must move the mission forward based on where the positioning of the city was at the time and how we have grown over the years and how we continue to be able to grow. So there's a lot when it comes down to orienting yourself to this idea of what is a village. So I would say that when we look at the loved ones and loss, the village is every little piece of how we will have to deal with um, not having persons that we really appreciated and enjoyed around us. We really have to build this village construct. Are there legislations that can help us build this village construct? And I will say that there hasn't been enough done. We need to really look at programs that heal and programs that support. And I do know that there has been a great testimony and advocacy, particularly in Prince George's County, coming through the COVID and coming through the pandemic and addressing the various spouts of challenge that we've had. There has been a great testimony to fight harder for our families. And that's part of what we would hope and expect to see in supporting our village. When I think about, you know, where I grew up on a farm. And being on a farm, it was really an interesting thing where you had your family and you had the neighbor, which was probably about a mile down the road. And then you had the farm itself, which is really the land animals and everything that you have to take care of. When you look at it that way, we had several little enclaves of villages that keep you very occupied. I've noticed that in the model that I came in with as mayor, moving the mission forward, that one of the missions that we had was the preservation of our legacies. And the preservation of that legacy meant building strong families that remembered the strength that built Glenarden, and remembering the strength and the support that enabled things like politics in the state of Maryland. You know, many people say the lineage of it in Black politics came from Glenarden. Legislation is currently in a place where sanctions are being imposed to try and command and control things, but we have to be more cognizant that we encourage and provide support as we drive legislation forward. When we are building a village, it's important to note that inside of every little village, there are rules. And those rules is kind of like a code. And when you're in the code, you understand the code. Now, my husband grew up in Chicago, Cabrini Green. Many of you know that Cabrini Green is no longer there. It's been torn down and turned into sky rises and upscale apartment living, townhouses, and such. Many movies made there, you know, about the different types of troubles that were unfortunately impacted there. But I can tell you that with him growing up in that environment, we often ask him, how did he not fall victim to like gangs? And how did he not fall victim to, you know, struggles and the troubles that many of his friends fell victim to? And he talked about the community programs at school that kept him past the hour of influence. And when I asked him about that to explain a little bit more, he essentially stated, I liked the drama club, so I liked acting. I liked the photography, and he's a photographer of the day as well. And so I joined the newspaper club. And he also said, I was very fast and I was also very slender. They always called him, you know, you know, like lightning. He was fast. He was actually a Junior Olympics qualifier. And so he always used those three items as kind of like his outlet as well as his passion. And it's funny because those are now things that he even brought forward into life. As we're looking at loss, I have to acknowledge that the village has to build emergency right now programming, wraparound programming that supports parents and that supports children. And when I look at his story, he lived and was brought up in an environment that was structurally maybe unsafe, though he had loving parents. There is a piece of our community that does build those types of challenges where we as a village can be an adequate alternative. And I will say that while we've built the village, that we haven't necessarily incorporated as much change actions as fantasy is now taking over legacy. Fantasy, the idea, the wonder, the daydreaming, as it was once called for when I grew up. Daydreaming is beautiful. I think dreams help you keep focus and also directs. But I am asking and have been asking for a while now that we invest in community service programs, programs that build in a design where fantasy can become reality positively. It's so important that we look at building through any issues and challenges. As I talk to even my young ones, I allow them to have emotions. I want the emotion because what we've have discovered is when emotion comes forward, then you are able to release all the pressure. And when it's spoken into the atmosphere, then there is an opportunity to either heal. And when you say it and hear it and feel it, your senses are on hydro drive. And we as humans are created in such a special way that we start to come up with solutions for our own concerns. But we have to encourage speaking. So that's the first thing when we talk about healing from loss or healing, and not just human loss. There's a big theft going on with our identities. So we are healing from that. There are people who's lost their homes even and lost so much of their privacy due to computer theft. And that's just living life. This is the world that we live in, technology, cyberbullying, all these things that I would say as a baby boomer born to traditionalists who came through parents that came through World War II, there wasn't always the opportunity for, say, a child or even an adult to express themselves, to speak. There wasn't forums like the Mayoral Forum where you can and you have an opportunity to speak. And speaking, hearing, and feeling are outside of touching and smelling. Those three senses alone help the body begin the journey of acceptance, deliverance, and resolve. And that's the key piece. We have to move forward. And in order to move forward, sometimes it does take what we all call miracles, but sometimes a village can help. Being there, standing in the gap. Many of us loved growing up in communities where we had girlfriends, boyfriends, and the whole nine. It's very interesting in the world that we live in now, where it's hard to see children playing on the front yard. And every time you turn on the news, someone's been abducted. You know, these are the times, as they state, that try me in souls, because part of the growing up is experiencing building mud castles and different types of things. We live in a world where both parents now work. And no offense to anyone that doesn't, but it is more likely now that you're going to have both parents making a living, trying to make the ends meet. And it's interesting that while this world has become more economical, the prices and generally the ability to acquire nice things is more expensive. I remember when I got my first car, and it was a Honda CRX. Got it in 1992. I graduated from high school. I stated to my mother and father, again, who were farmers, that I wanted this two-door hatchback, two-seater sports car. And I remember my mom saying, and how am I going to ride in this car with you and your dad, who's going to buy it for you? And what was interesting, she thought about it and she says, but if I get her a two-seater, two-door hatchback, then that's less likely that she's going to be hauling a lot of people around. So I got the car. And when I came out, I remember seeing this big red bow and I thought, oh my goodness, somebody got my dream car. And it was mine. And I remember grabbing my mom, and she's just giggling because she's like, I got you, I got you. Well, the funny thing is, I mean, you would have thought the whole graduation was over because everybody wanted to come and celebrate this car because they knew that that's what I asked for. My junior year, my senior year, that's all I wanted. And I was an honor student, a Hall of Famer, and I knew that I didn't really have the purpose to ask for something. And at that time, that car I think was $13,000. Yes, a sports car, $13,000. Try and find a sports car today for $13,000. But my parents got that for me. And I remember just how that made me feel. And that was 1992. By 1995, both parents were in heaven. Now, I can tell you that that was a very interesting time. Going through college, trying to figure out this thing called life, trying to figure out this dating game without somebody to really talk to, bosom buddy. It was a very interesting time. And I can imagine now that's 1995, 1996. And where are we today with as much technology? And we didn't have as much then. So that's why I say the village. My village made sure that mentally, emotionally, and physically and financially, I was capable. But I will tell you, I worked at Jack's chicken and hamburger shop, and I also worked at Sonic's, and I worked at a little store called Tots to Teens in my city of Aberdeen, Mississippi. Shout out to Miss Sharon Thomas for keeping me on for so long. But I held down 3 jobs as a college student, and I was still very active because when I graduated, I was literally, like I said, a Hall of Famer. I was the Bulldog All-Star for football, for sports. I played tennis. I got a chance to be a cheerleader. I danced for the Queen of England, Queen Elizabeth, and at the Royal Albert's New Year Day parade. And I was very active. And I was, at that point, president of a student body as well. And I went to junior college, and praise God, I had a full ride, but still, I had to stay focused. And that's what my village did. They reminded me of the focus. It reminded me of the impact. It reminded me of the dreams, the visions, and it kept me connected to the family. And that was important. And I had friends that I had made in high school that kept me connected, and they surrounded me. And I can't tell you how important that was because I was working 3 jobs to now pay a car note and to make sure that I had insurance and make sure that I knew about, financial literacy. And I trained myself on, civility and order. And at the same time, yeah, go to the club and have fun and try and have a college existence. And I was so fortunate to have that village that even the president of the school that I was in, because I had become the second Black unanimously selected homecoming queen for Itawamba Community College. Only the second. It was usually a Black and a white. Everything was a Black and a white. And the year before was the first Black, and I was the second Black of the combined queen court. And I remember asking if my father could escort me. And that was 1994. And they told me no, because the student body had elected you, then the student body needs to escort you. And I said, okay, fine. And that year he passed. Now, it was devastating to me because my father would take me to every game. He would never go in, but he would just be out there in the truck waiting for his baby girl. I'm the baby of 9. And I remember the president of the school calling me, Dr. Cole calling me into his office, and he's in literal tears. And he's like, had I known. And I told him, I said, but you couldn't. And that's the thing about life. God gives us all a number. He gives us all a time frame. We don't know when the hour is. And I'd been studying a lot about the rapture, even. We don't even know when that hour is. That's why he says, stay connected and stay ready, because you don't know the hours. And I remember being a consult to him. And I looked at myself as this young college student, sophomore, and I thought, wow, look at you. Didn't you grow up? And I remember saying that to myself, and I'm tearing up now because he was really looking at why couldn't we have done it? They do it in bigger institutions. And I would tell you right now that that institution, from where we grew it to where it is today, it is the premier community college down in Fulton, Mississippi. Look it up, Itawamba Community College Indians. And it was so awesome to have him in my life at that time. He literally became like a father figure to me. He was a person that I could reach out to if I was having a hard time in class. He always made sure that he paid attention when he was walking around campus, if he saw me, to speak. The village doesn't have to always have you on lockdown, but the village sees you. And I'm telling you, from this point forward, that we shall build the village. I see you, Ms. Bowles, you've joined us, and we're talking about this importance of the village and what that means, particularly for those that have grief or have lost. And it's so important that we acknowledge the grief, but it's also important that we acknowledge the faith and the movement forward. So move the mission forward is my motto, moving the mission forward. And each one of us is on a mission. And this mission right now is called life and living. And what I really love about my community college at that time is that shortly after I lost my father, then I lost my mother. And I have to say that, this is a woman that survived breast cancer. This is a woman that had diabetes, sugar, all these things that, the African American culture has. But when that moment hit with my father, he had a cerebral stroke. It was different. It was different. And you didn't have that buddy to argue with. You didn't have that buddy to just kind of look at you, looking at them. My husband and I would always joke when we got together that we would be that old couple sitting on the porch, spitting watermelon seeds out and watching the world go by. And it's so interesting that, again, our lives have numbers. We don't know what they are. But what we must do is we must take time to smell the roses. And each and every one of you on this line, each and every one of you under the sound of my voice, in my communities, in the municipality, in the county, in the state, in the nation, in this world, you're roses to me. And that's why it's such a beautiful thing to be amongst you in programs and events, because as they say, you get to smell the roses. And smell the roses just simply means you get to stop, take time, and be in the presence of others and enjoy them, enjoy others. I see you've joined us, Mr. Britton. Please feel free to chime in. This Mayoral Forum is an open discussion. We mentioned earlier that we would use our hand raise so that I can make sure that we wasn't talking over each other, but definitely if you want to speak to this topic of healing, please feel free.
Hey, good afternoon, Mayor, and good afternoon, body, Prince Georgians, and to the global communicators. I know we out there in the global. Great subject that you're having tonight. Great discussion. I apologize, I was a little bit tardy, working on some other commitments and things of that nature, right? But when we talk about healing, yes, we know that if we're physically hurting, we pretty much do a good job of going to the doctor because it's right there, it's tendency, right? But when we talk about healing, there's a subject of healing that doesn't get so much attention that we need to bring to surface and bring to light, okay? And that's that I feel a little different. I'm not feeling, you know, I'm not feeling, I'm not feeling all together there. And the thing about it is, it's okay not to be okay. You know, I mean, it's okay not to be okay. For me, this subject came full circle with me in the loss of my son. We lost my son in February of 2020. My son is a my son is a suicide. I mean, he's a successful suicide. My son died by suicide, and he was dealing with some things, and we thought we had gotten him over it, but I mean, it's just out of the blue, out of the blue. This thing defloored us, and and then the thing about it is the following on months, years, you ask yourself, well, what could we have done different? Or you start investigating, you're looking into things of that nature. But, I mean, I guess, the thing is, he was experiencing some challenges, right? And, I'm not saying if we had been a little bit more proactive, whatever it is, but the thing about it is, Brandon is where Brandon is, right? I like to think he's in the bosom of Abraham, right? But there are still individuals out there that may be in that situation. And so part of my healing is to look for and discover, individuals who aren't feeling well, right? Individuals who can't cope, can't get along with they can't have positive relationships because of neurological type situations, right? And so whether they be African American or Caucasian or Latinx or whatever it is, right? But the thing about it, in our African American community, when we talk about healing, ma'am, one of the things that we have to do is we have to recognize that mental health is an issue, okay? And we have to pay attention to that, and we have to start treating the mental health, right, with certain things of that nature. And a recipient of that, and I'm going to bring this full circle, but as we do that, not only do we protect our sons and our daughters, our nieces, our nephews, and all that, but we can heal generations of hurt. I heard you say you and your dad kind of have fun together, things of that nature, right there. But everybody didn't have a dad, right? Everybody didn't have a mom, and the mother and father that they had, they might not want. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But the thing about it is, generations of hurt have precipitated our Black American community, and it's going full circle today with the gun violence, suicide, and homicide, because precipitators of that are getting younger and younger. That's a direct result of generations of hurt, generational hurt. Okay, and so if we recognize and get at this problem and put forth some healing, right? So we have to recognize it. We have to socialize it. We have to let everybody know it's okay not to be okay. And then just talk about it. If you're having some issues, let's talk about it. And but in your comments about healing, one of the things we have to heal in our African American community in Prince George's County, gorgeous Prince George's, is we have to recognize the fact that mental health is an issue, you know? And then, so, well, what do you do about it? Well, first of all, we encourage minority professionals who can relate a little bit more to our situations and not just studies and historical and metrics and all this and that, right? But what's behind those metrics? What's behind that generational hurt, okay? And then we have to enable those individuals to have access to it, you know? We have to provide access to it. We have to, you know, get the funding, and then we have to, but the funding isn't there. But once we provide the funding there, but also we have to really encourage the individuals to actually follow through. Okay. We can provide the professionals, we can provide the funding, but if we don't get them in the tables and get them there, then we're not doing anything, right? So we have to, it's a full circle. It's a complete course. And I wish that we could be talking about something a little bit different tonight, but I recognize the need. I mean, I recognize the need. I always did after serving 28 years in the military, but it just came full circle in 2020 when I lost my son. So mental health is an issue. It's something that we need to address.
And thank you so much for your bravery and communicating that. And I want you to know that insecurities is the other piece, you know, even in my own house, you know, and I would always say, and there was a young lady that talked to me. She said, well, I'm having a study done. And I said, what's your study on? She says, successful parents. And what does that do to children? And I said, interesting. So are you not supposed to be a successful parent? Or are we having to then go back to what I call round tables? So when we grew up, everybody ate at the same table. Dinner time was sacred. You had to be in by the lights turned off, and everybody sat down together, most of us. And in that time is where you talked about what's happening today. You talked about what happened yesterday and how you feel about certain programs or processes. Insecurity is a big thing right now that's causing, I think, a lot of the hurt as well as the anxiousness that's coming out as aggression. With this digital technology age, I said earlier, fantasy is destroying legacy. There is an intent to stay up to date, an intent to keep all these balls in the air. Where when we originally grew up with Encyclopedia Britannica coming to the house once a year, you didn't have a problem letting certain balls drop. And I will tell you, when I was in the military, I also served 20 years as Air Force veteran, 5 combat tours to war. There wasn't a lot of phones that I wanted in my life. Like, I never wanted a phone. I never wanted a beeper. When those things came out, my sisters made me get one. They said, you travel too far up and down the road in your little CRX by yourself, and it's not okay for a woman to not have a way to contact someone. I said, well, there's a payphone. Novelty. And I remember them forcing me to get a pager. I hated when that thing went off, because if I'm making good time on an 8-hour trip, now I got to slow down. That was irritating to me. And I told them, I said, I don't like this beeper. They said, and you're going to keep it. And then when the cell phone came out, it was like, and you're going to get a flip phone. I said, oh, Lord, now I'm going to get burnt up at the pump, because you know the flip phones used to catch on fire. So I remember fighting this technology age. And lo and behold, what did the military do? Well, we want to put you in cyber. And I'm thinking, oh, great. Well, at least I get out of Intel and I can go do something behind a desk. Well, you know, the funny thing about cyber, and I love that you brought up mental health, is you get to see everything. And when we had suicide bombers, and when we had roadside bombers, and when we had to look at those things in action, it took a toll on a lot of people, because we're all human. And again, as a village person, I find it hard when there isn't enough people around that a widow and a biblical person should be taken care of. and the only outlet for the widow to make something happen for that family, to give them any kind of money, is to go and do something that cost that person their life. And so it did a number on a lot of our troops. And, post-traumatic stress syndrome was something that came out, and it took a long time. A lot of legislation had to be written. And that's why I say this fighting the disenfranchisement doesn't happen without legislation. And the legislation has to be focused on putting money towards building our villages and putting help on the ground. I see you on the line, and please feel free to come and talk, Missionary, if you want to, open up. It's okay. This is a safe place for us, and we're talking about overcoming the quiet, because that's the threat. Quiet. No one needs to be quiet. At this time, we must speak out, and we need to speak clearly about what's needed. It's going to take all of us thinking to come up with the support network that builds the connection back to the village. I never ever wanted to be disconnected, but I found that this connection, particularly with the military, because they didn't deploy you with like a lot of people in the Air Force. You were 1, 2, 3. I think the largest deployment I had, I was a troop commander of 5. And I remember we got stranded in Rota, Spain, and I thought, oh, I'm the troop commander. It's like, you got 5 people. The Army travels with like 40. But it was interesting because they became family at that point. And as we got there, it was intentional upon me, almost like Mother Bird, to watch out for them. Now, these are grown women and men. But because I was the troop commander, it made me feel a sense of obligation to be my brother's keeper and watch out for him. And we were in different places, in Iraq. But when we got there, it was like, okay, if I ever see you, I'm going to follow up with my community, that connection. And it's just like when you have a girlfriend or a boyfriend, you haven't talked to in 10 years. You get on the phone with them, and what do? You talk 2.5 hours. And you're like, girl, you need to call more often because you done wore my phone out. That's what we're talking about, building that village. We got to bring that back to where there is no one alone. And when we have grief in our life, when we have loss in our life, we need to have a moment to speak those things so that healing can begin. Healing begins from feeling it, from speaking it, and when you speak it, you hear yourself say it. And that brings about the acceptance and the growth. And I really like what you did, Mr. Britton, in creating the Hay Foundation. That's a hope and empowerment foundation. And you're not hiding what happened because, again, every one of us has a number. We don't know what it will look like for either one of us. Many of us hope it'll be the rapture. But who knows, right? So we live our lives for the moment, and we live our lives and we live in this moment. And I can appreciate programs like the Hay Foundation and what you're doing to actually drive hard towards getting mental health and wellness providers out there, financial literacy providers out there, growth of community, infrastructure building. We even are looking at, priorities dealing with our returning citizens, because when you've served your time and you're back in the community, then the community should be a place of embracement. No matter what you've done, you've served your time. And when it's over, then how do you build that block to recover? And that's what, many of us are now looking at as another piece of concern, because you created a crime, 50 years ago. It was egregious then. It's not really something that community accepts now. But what happens after that time is served? Why is it that the village continues to make it hard to where you can't make a living, you can't get a decent job, you can't get commendable housing, These are the programs that we're talking about, okay? And in that time, in those 50 years, and prison's hard. It's not meant to be comfortable. It's meant to be hard, okay? There is a payment that's been paid. And when community comes back into the picture, civility, civil society has to have a place that says, welcome home. And that's what I love about Men in the Gap and what they're doing with the reentry programs that they build, because again, a high number of our suicides and our losses are folks that are reentering into society. As we talked about insecurities and the technology age that is creating all of the excitement and really the, fantasy that a lot of our young folks are dealing with. None of us that have made any kind of money did it overnight. We didn't just go poof, we rich, or poof, we bought a house. It took time. It took an investment. And that's something that we can do with people like PNC Bank, who has a community reinvestment requirement. For being in the city of Glenarden, they have to give back. So they can train on mortgage ownership. They can train on financial literacy. But it takes us making that request. What was the thing that could have made a difference? And we got to ask those questions, and it takes us talking about it. Not living in what happened, but building forward. And that's what this Mayoral Forum has been about, building forward. Today, we are building forward. We're not sitting in our insecurities. We're not sitting in our grief. We're not sitting in our anger. But we're going to take that and we're going to put money and legislation towards building forward. And we're going to acknowledge that this is a requirement. And this may be the first forum that it's been said this way. It's a requirement. This village thing is not a joke. It's a requirement. And if we don't build the village, we don't get to complain about no change. If we don't build the village, we don't get to sit in our homes and say, oh, I'm afraid. Because what you're fearing is fear itself, when there's really nothing really to fear. But what I acknowledge is that we are overcomers, and we have been given this gift of action. So this Mayoral Forum is a call to action. I created a fanatics program for our youth, and all I needed was a 500 word. What do we do about the disenfranchisement, and the violence that seems to be facing our youth? You could draw a picture, you could do a rap, and that's all I asked for. And those are hard things to pull. I remember if somebody told me I was going to get tickets to see the Capitals play, or the Wizards, or the Mystics, or the Commanders, shoot, I'd be like, and all I got to do is what? Make a rap song? I would have made up toenail rap just to have my name at the board. But it's hard to even get that pulled. These are free tickets, good seats. So this is what I'm talking about. Our programming, our community, our village has to look at ways to build services that aren't just putting our families and children in boxes, pretty little bows on them, and we go, check mark, we did that. No, healing from grief is real, and you can't box it up. It has to be open and explored. And it has to be explored with as sound metrics. And it has to be explored with financial backing. And that's something that the state and the county and the delegate house and the Senate house, the Congress, president, mayors, that's what we all got to look at. How can we cut the fat in programmings that may not be working and bring back the village. That's the call to action. So we're about at our time. And this, again, has been quite a unique mayoral forum as we've addressed this technique building opportunity. And we took the first step forward to say that today is the day that we put a plan in place. Today is the day we put a plan in place. I see your hand, Miss Angel.
Hi, good evening, Mayor. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I just wanted to chime in. I want to first off thank you for this forum and the topic of the evening. I'd like to introduce myself. I am Angel Akinwale, President and founder of Divine Services and Foundations Incorporated, also known as DSF Inc. We provide services to Maryland and Washington, D.C., surrounding domestic violence, mental health, conflict resolutions, youth empowerment, and personal development. And tonight's topic really hit home because in this organization, we're still in the developmental phases. However, I am determined to create a village for this organization to be successful. Okay. We are faith based, as I just stated. We actually are developing programs that are based on the principles. This is when we're talking about the healing and grieving process, principles from the Bible, okay, from the gospel of Jesus Christ. We're taking those principles and using those to develop our programs when it comes to healing as reminders to individuals of your power and your authority. And this is one of the things that I feel is missing from a lot of, and I'm not going to say a lot, the communities. And this is what's allowing the conflicts. When I say conflicts, I'm talking about suicide, um, mental health, disease. We're talking about like health now, because it's dis-ease. We've strayed from the foundation, God's plan. And this is something that we're trying to incorporate in our programs to remind individuals of how we are, just the basic foundations of life. I feel as though this is a piece that needs to be incorporated in a lot of programs in the community because we are definitely in a spiritual warfare, and a lot of individuals are just, communities are just making the right thing wrong and the wrong things right. And we just need those constant reminders of, our purpose, what it is that God has intended for mankind. And I find one of my struggles as I'm developing, I've had about 3 events throughout 2023. The struggle one is getting people to open up to the idea of a faith-based organization, providing this information, getting the support that I need as far as partnership. You have several faith-based organizations out here, but when you start, when I start talking about my organization and the structure of it, and how I'm planning to heal the community or communities, it seems as though when I talk about my plan, people get afraid. Oh, we can't do it like that. Do you think it will be accepted? And then to talk about the funding piece, I can't seem to find anyone to give me financial backing so that I can roll out, make sure that I have those individuals that can help with the healing. That's the mental health professionals and, just the professionals that I need in general, materials, the space that I need to actually hold these programs. I've been doing virtual, but virtual is okay. It's very convenient. However, there's something missing from these virtual meetings, and that is that interpersonal connection. So the energy is just totally different when you're face to face and we're in that room because we're all spiritual beings. And if everyone can understand that, I know you can feel it when you're in the room. And certain topics are being had. You feel it on Sundays when you're in church, right? When the Holy Ghost just, moves in the room. You can feel it. So it's the same thing with an event. If you're in the room, you feel it differently. It hits you differently. So I just kind of wanted to chime in. I want to thank you for this forum, and just let you know that I'm standing with you 10 toes down, and being a part of this village, so that we can make things happen.
Thank you so much for that, Miss Angel. And I see your hand, Miss Shanae. I see your hand, Miss Shanae.
Hello, how y'all doing? I'm Shanae.
Hi.
I'm there. How you doing? I do agree with everybody is saying, because it do take a village to try to help somebody go through grieving. Because as myself, I'm going through grieving myself. I just lost my son a month ago. And it's like they praise the negative things, but they don't praise like the good positive things that I have done out here, or try to change in the community for these kids so I could prevent what happened to my son. And I grieve by myself because it's not no villain. Since my son passed away, you think anybody came and knocked on my door or called me and say, like, is you okay? Do you need anything? Do you need to talk? I got to deal with that on my own. So this is a real good topic, because I can't speak on my behalf that it's not no villain out here. Like, you got to face everything by yourself. And that's what I've been doing the whole month, facing things by myself, or trying to figure out things, or how to cope without my child, or how to move on without my child by myself.
Right.
So yes, I think it things do need to change.
And one of the things, I've got Miss Balls on here. I know for Woodstream Church, she is a grief and community counselor. In fact, that's where she was prior to coming here. She had gotten a phone call. She was, attending to someone who was in that process. And that's what we're talking about. But that takes an investment, that takes money, and that takes giving that person, a hotline on the community line, that you can call and say, all right, I'm not dealing well today. And as Mr. Britton has stated many times, we did a program together with Mr. Joe Diggs, professional boxer, and he had a program that's called It's Okay to Not Be Okay. And he addressed the grief, he addressed mental health, and he addressed these different challenges that we're going through right now, but it wasn't comfortable to talk about with our parents that were traditionalists, the novelists. Don't say that. Don't let anybody know we got problems, but this isn't the time for that, because technology travels with the speed of light. If you don't say it, somebody done had it said 15 different ways. That's why healing comes from speaking, from feeling. And when you speak it and you feel it and you hear it in your own ear, out of your own mouth, it starts to heal. But we are right there with you. And again, that's what we say. It takes money to build a village. And we should already have, because we have had a lot of loss in our community. And we need to have an on-site, or at least a phone number attached to the city, to a grief and healing professional that you can call 24/7 when things aren't going okay. Because what we don't want is our families to feel isolated, alone. What we don't want is that. We want to hear the voice. Mr. Britton, I see your hand.
Yes, ma'am. Real quick, I would like to offer an opportunity for the young lady to get counseling. And if it's okay, it's perfectly fine that she does it with Miss Sandy Bowles. We can coordinate the logistics on that between you and I. But as part of this, because we want her, sister, first of all, sister, I'm going to tell you, you're not alone. Okay. You're not alone. You're not alone. And so I want to pray with you. I want you to contact me, Mayor. And then Mayor, I want you to contact me and then give me the information so that we can connect this young lady with Miss Bowles, and we can get her the healing that she needs, okay? Because sister, you're not alone, okay?
Man, sometimes it feels like that. People make you feel alone when it's certain subjects been put out there about your children. So they make you feel alone, or they make you feel isolated because I guess he didn't die the right way. Should I say that?
No, there's no way, there's no right
But
or wrong way for that to
I
happen.
mean, no, to you feel like it's no right way to die, but to them,
Yeah.
oh, it's wrong. We ain't gonna praise her, or we ain't gonna help her. Forget her.
Right. No,
And Shanae, you didn't hear Mr. Britton's story when he came on initially. He talked about his son actually suicided. And he was dealing with some things that the family had been trying to help him work through, but he succumbed to, the torture of that thing. And so that's what he's saying. You're not alone because,
Yeah.
on this line, and even for me, many of you don't know, but we've also lost little ones before they even took their breath.
yeah.
And, because I was military and the first one we lost, I was told to go to the firing range. And I said, well, I'm not going to deploy anytime soon, pregnant. And they said, yeah, but you got to stay mission ready. And what I didn't recognize was discrimination was a real thing. I thought we were in the 20th century, 21st century. I didn't see discrimination. I saw workers, service. I saw mission. And after going to that firing range, the week before I'd had an appointment, everything was wonderful, development. This was our first kid. And a week after, the baby was gone. And I remember just the grief of that. I'm strong, lady, so it's okay, it's okay. But when the doctor said, "What'd you do? Go ride a horse?" And I looked at him and I said, "You're super insensitive." Compassion, compassion. When someone is about to go through a battle with grief and bereavement, compassion. When someone is dealing with cyberbullying, compassion. When someone is dealing with ADHD or dealing with other type of PTSDs, compassion. That's what we're talking about. Service and putting our money where our mouth is about having compassion for something that someone else might not be able to deal with right now. Because we strong to tell somebody what you do, go ride a horse. No, I went to the firing range, but there was no evidence that lead poisoning or the sound of the poof of the rifle could have shocked or did something to that unborn fetus, because it still set, it seeded well, but it died on the wall. And I'm going to tell you, I still have baby Grace's first Christmas ornament, and we put it up every year, and she would have been 25 years old. Miss Angel, I see your hand.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you again. This comment is for Miss, I believe her name is Shanae. Okay, yes. Okay. As Mr. Britton and Mayor has spoken, you are not alone. I have lost 2 children in life, and no, I'm sorry, to death, and I've lost 3 children to life. I have a mighty testimony that I would be more than happy to share with you at another date. If you would like to exchange contacts, we can. I also have someone else that I would love to connect you with that has lost, she's experienced domestic violence and lost a child in that situation. It was actually one of the trending headliners in PG County several years ago. But she's still on her healing journey. This was about 8 years ago. She's still on her healing journey, but she has started a nonprofit organization called Self Love Ministry. I would like to connect you with her as well, so she can possibly help you on your healing journey.
Yes, I would love to appreciate, like, my son passed away in the Bowie car accidents with the 14s.
Okay.
So, like, I'm dealing with, criticism from that, all the negative stuff, but I don't feed into the negative, because if you knew my child, you knew my child. I don't owe nobody no explanation. I'm not trying to make my child look perfect or nothing, but it has been hard because I don't have support. Like,
Mm.
But things have, hold on. But things is getting better. You know, I try my organization too to try to get back to the kids and see like what the root that we can do for these kids. Because these kids face depression and anxiety too. But like they don't have no voice out here. And I cried to the police, I cried to the school, begging for help. And then when that happened, oh, y'all want to look at like I'm not a good parent or I failed my child. No, y'all failed me because I did reach out and ask for help so I can prevent this from my child. It's like,
Shanae, my name is Sandy, and I just want to echo some of what the other people have said, but my heart goes out to you. And I too would like to connect with you and just share a little bit about a ministry that I'm involved in called Grief Share. And we have participants in that group who have gone through similar things. And I just wanted to have a chance to talk to you one-on-one about what we do and see if you're interested.
okay, I'm gonna do I put my number in this chat?
Yes.
Okay.
Put your name and number in the chat and they can grab that. And
Okay.
also I'm gonna put my number for everyone to be able to see it as well. And I would like for each of the providers to please reach out to me. We are building our village and you are the foundation. You are the foundation. So I really hate to say it, but we have met our time. Pretty much we've exceeded our time, but there's no way I was stopping the healing. And I don't know if you felt it, but I felt it. It was a release. And I'm so honored for each one of you coming on and speaking to this topic. To put it in the atmosphere means that now we have a call to action. Now we have immediate requirement to put something in the atmosphere to affect change so that no one else has to feel alone. No one else has to feel like I'm a cry in the darkness because of my social economic status or because, I don't have this community preeminence that it seems to be required to get help. We are all going to be part of this village and we're all going to fight hard. And yes, life's going to pull us in so many different ways, but we have to fight for our communities. We got to fight for our children. We got to fight for our families, and we got to fight for each other, and we got to fight for ourselves. More importantly, we got to fight for ourselves. Thank you for bringing out the biblical aspects, Miss Angel. Many people don't want to talk about Christ because, well, you don't want to offend anybody because this is a world that's been created where faith is the only thing that really combats fantasy. Hope is what we got to build. We got to put hope back in the atmosphere. We got to put energy to it. And you can't put hope where hopelessness exists. You got to debunk fantasy with an opportunity for growth, for transference of wealth, generational blessings, and not generational curses. And this is where the community has to build programming for growth. And that's why we talked about the PNC Bank and we talked about, like the Hay Foundation. We talk about Collective Impacts Foundation Corporation. We talk about all these organizations that stood up, all doing the same things in different places, like a splinter cell. We need to come together. And we're building networks of networks that's going to start to hold us in the palm of his hands. We are the church. We just had church here tonight. We didn't need no building.
Amen.
We are the church. Let us be part of healing each other. I'm Mayor Cashenna A. Cross. This has been the Mayoral Forum for November. We're speaking out and we're standing strong for our families and our communities. Won't you join us?
God bless
Have a
you.
great night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Bless you, Mayor.
Good night, all. Very informative. Very